What is going on? I want to welcome you from AFCOR for today, Tuesday, October 18th. I'm your host, Sean Murphy, alongside my man, Jeff Iafredi. Jeff, happy NBA opening day, my friend. We made it. We made it.
We did. And we're actually, speaking on the time, I don't have a watch. I'm looking at my imaginary watch. We'll be down there later on. So it's
Yes,
going to be a good
sir.
day. It's going to be a good day today.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, Pistons start tomorrow. So when you're seeing this, it's Tuesday. So like for us, we'll be watching the Warriors game tonight. You know what I'm saying? We'll be watching Jordan Poole punch it in. Well, no. We'll see Draymond smack. Yeah, okay. Wow. Okay, we really got to stop. Anyway, young cores in the NBA.
Wait. I thought we were doing a video on Kemba Walker's legacy in Detroit. No?
Yeah, let's do that. All right, here we go. Ready? And that was our video on Kemba Walker's legacy in Detroit. Like that's exactly how long that video was. But Jeff, we are here today to talk about young cores in the NBA, specifically the Ringer. They're at it again, ranking young cores. Jeff, I know this is a video that you and I feel like this is deja vu because I feel like one of the first videos we did together was looking at a young core ranking on the ringer.com.
Yep. And what was the thing we talked about? Reading the context. Because I believe the first list we saw, the Celtics were ranked like first or second. And we're like, well, guys, the context matters because they have these rules they follow. See, when people think of young core, I think it gets mixed up. So I'm curious to see the context of this list and how they measure it.
Yeah, most definitely. Because you and I were looking at this yesterday, and it's a pretty interesting list because what they did, Jeff, was they did a mixture of rankings from statistics based off of 538's win above replacement projections, and also they did a ranking based off of where experts think this young core ranks, and then they also threw in where they ranked last year all together, came up with a ranking. That's how they did it. And with that, they also focused on players under the age of 25. So number 30 is the Milwaukee Bucks. Number 29 is the Los Angeles Lakers. That's what we're looking at, right?
Mm-hmm.
But with that, I think what makes this list in particular even more interesting, again, this was compiled by Zach Crom, Kyle Mann over at the Ringer NBA. So be sure you go check that out. It's a really interesting article. Jeff, it's not necessarily what teams are ranked at the top, but I would say it's rather like what teams are ranked over the Pistons and like for what reason. The one team that is ranked above Detroit that I don't think deserves to be is the Orlando Magic. Currently on this ranking, they have the Detroit Pistons at 7th as far as young core rankings, which I think is a pretty darn good place to have them, especially with where they were last year, where they're at now. It seems like they're really starting to climb these young core rankings lists. But for me, it's like, okay, well, they're behind Oklahoma City. That makes sense just from the amount of picks they have, and also with some of the assets they have on board as well, right? But then you have the Pelicans. It's like, all right, they have Zion, but like Brandon Ingram, is he a young core player?
That's a big piece.
I mean, yeah, like that's a big piece, but like he's kind of teetering on a young core and veteran. Right. You know what I mean?
Right. He's on the end.
Yeah, I mean, and yeah, they have guys like Herb Jones, Jose Alvarado, but like you could debate this one, is what I'm saying, right? But the Orlando Magic, even within their rankings, I'm glad it acknowledges the fact that expert rankings put them below the Pistons. But Jeff, the Orlando Magic above the Pistons in their young core? I mean, like again, like we're not nitpicking here. Like these are, these are rankings, these are lists. If you want to know the rest, they have the Mavs third, which again, you and I talked about that yesterday. It's like, do you really just have them third just because of Luka? Like, is that like that's a little ridiculous, is it not? But like Jeff, I think the ultimate point here is that if we want to see the Pistons rise on these rankings, rise on these lists, it's going to come down to them beginning to do what? Win basketball games. And I think that's going to be the thing that's going to get people's respect. But what do you think, like looking at this ranking yourself, kind of, digesting it, what sticks out to you on this list? What are some, to you, like, what do you think of that just off the surface? What are your thoughts?
It's just it's always tough when you're looking at someone else's ranking and how they determine it. Like, for example, the Magic, yeah, they have a plethora of young talent. They had like 6 guys last year in double digits, all very young players. So I get it. The amount of young players they have, you would probably slide them above Detroit. I like our foundation, at least what Detroit has, but a big part of that with Jaden Ivey, he hasn't even played a game yet. But then you'd also wonder, why is Paulo included in the Orlando Magic being ahead of the Pistons if he hasn't even played a game yet? So I really don't care about this list. I'm not too mad about it. I get why the Oklahoma City Thunder are ranked slightly higher too, because like you said, a lot of picks, they have a lot of assets, but they haven't played yet. So again, it's a lot of foreshadow.
Hearsay. A lot of
Exactly.
foreshadowing, a lot of hearsay.
Exactly. So again, this is the ringer. We're talking about it, so clearly they're getting people to talk about it. But eventually, you said it best. The Pistons have to do one thing. It's just win. If you see, it doesn't even matter who's ranked above them. If you really believe, like we do it with the young core the Pistons have currently, they're going to be fine. I think they're going to. I got to watch what I say here, but personally, I think the Pistons, even though them and the Magic are very close, I can see the Pistons taking strides quicker than the Magic, just because I think personally the Magic have a plethora, like I said, of young talent, but the Pistons have at least one for sure franchise player that can be a superstar. Apollo, we haven't seen yet, although we think he can be that. We don't know at this very moment. So this doesn't really matter to me, to be honest with you.
I mean, the Pistons are a year ahead of Orlando in the rebuild. I mean, because Orlando started, with the Nikola Vucevic trade a couple years ago, right in the midst of when Detroit, was in the middle of that season that they were preparing to get Cade Cunningham, right? Like, I think part of it is just the fact that, Orlando does have a lot of pieces, but like, and again, like this is where you just come down to the nitty gritty. Like for me, it's like, what are you going to bet on more? The collection of Cade Cunningham with jaden Ivey alongside guys like Jalen Duren, or are you going to look at the guys like, sure, like, yeah, Paulo, like you said, we haven't even seen him touch an NBA court yet. However, from preseason summer league, everything we've seen, the guy's he's going to be a stud, right? But how many guys on the Magic are question marks, right? Like Jonathan Isaac. He literally hasn't played since the
Jalen Suggs. I mean, these guys are teetering between
Markelle Fultz.
Exactly. It's almost like a bunch of reclamation projects. Well, Franz Wagner, great player, a guy that was very overlooked last year. We talked a lot about him. Cole Anthony, I like a lot. Jonathan Isaac obviously was hurt, but that's a guy that we like as well. So you can pick pieces. But like you said, a lot of guys are kind of with the Magic or teetering between being traded in the future or being a part of their young core. Like it's kind of in the middle there. So I think the only reason personally they're ranked above the Pistons because the amount of players they have that are young. Personally.
Yeah. And I think that's a valid thing to bring up too. And also I think it's even, they might be unfairly factoring in the fact that Orlando is in pretty prime position as well to go for Victor Wembanyama. And the other thing is, by the way, if this Orlando Magic team has the audacity to put Mo Bamba, Wendell Carter Jr., and Paulo Banchero in a lineup together at the same time while we're seeing them play the Detroit Pistons, Jeff, I don't know what I'm going to do. I might find the highest balcony I can in that building and jump the off because I don't know if I can handle watching such atrocities.
It would be essentially what the Cavs tried to do with Lauri Markkanen, Evan Mobley, and Jared Allen, but like even worse.
Yeah,
at
least
Paulo.
that worked.
Yeah, it's insane.
It'd be like the Josh Smith, Greg Monroe,
but
Andre
actually,
Drummond days.
It would work.
No, this wouldn't work. It wouldn't work, Jeff. Anyway, okay. let's talk about the teams on this list that are working, right? Let's talk about the teams on this list that are at the top because they are there for a reason, right? The top two teams, the teams that we talk about all the time of who the Pistons are remodeling their rebuild after, the teams that we want to take the next steps, like the Cleveland Cavaliers, like the Memphis Grizzlies, even like the Dallas Mavericks to a certain extent, right? They went to a Western Conference Finals. I would say that's a pretty damn good step. But Jeff, I mean, we talked about it. It's about winning games, but it's about not just, it's about not just competing, it's getting to the point of contending, but like what are the things that we have to do to like what are those in between things? Because you look at a team like the Memphis Grizzlies. To me, Jeff, I think it's the fact that it's not just developed with the talent at the top of their roster as far as like your stars. It's like with Cade, for example. We know Cade's going to be a star, right? We know Ivey's more than likely going to be a star.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it's also like with like guys like the in like even with Cleveland, it's like, yeah, you have Donovan Mitchell, you have Darius Garland, like yeah, and Evan Mobley. It's pretty obvious why they're up there, right? But the unspoken pieces are the guys like Dean Wade's, like Isaac Okoro's, you know what I mean? Like the other reason why they're up there as well is
Yep.
because they have such good players in the margins. And we focus so much on the big names. But, Jeff, the reality of it is there's a lot of just really good basketball players on both of those teams. And I think that's a big piece of like what Detroit needs to focus into and how they can get better this year. They not only do they just need to get better across the board, they just need to get deeper.
Bingo, you hit on it. I think this is for the Pistons to be ranked higher on this list. You would need guys like Killian Hayes or an Isaiah Livers, Isaiah Stewart, these guys to take the next step because we know they can. At least we've seen the work they've put in. Isaiah Stewart's one of those guys, in Killian as well. Livers, like these guys can all take that next step to be, provide more depth. Like I talked about the Magic having like 6 guys that average over 10 points. The Pistons can have that, at least with depth around their superstar players or their guys you think will be superstars. And I think those guys are expected to take that next step this season. It's very integral. If you want to be included, the top 3 young cores, whatever it is, then yes, Killian Hayes is going to have to be one of those guys, those marquee players off your bench, the guy that is the general of that second unit who can make an impact, be aggressive like we saw in the preseason. You're going to need Livers to show he can shoot the ball, which he's shown it at a small fraction, but can he 82 game season? Can he be efficient? Can he play like the defense we've seen him play in preseason and in summer league? Can he translate that?
Well,
Isaiah
also,
Livers,
regular minutes, important basketball, time to shine. Let's see,
yep.
let's see let's see what you could do now.
And then Isaiah Stewart, a guy who's been working all offseason in practice, after practice with Jalen Duren. And Duren is a guy we haven't even talked about yet, by the way. Duren is going to be a big piece because if he can play significant minutes, which I think he will, Marvin Bagley's out for the next couple of weeks. That's a guy that if he pops, now instead of having Cade, Sadiq, and then you're looking around, now you have Cade, Sadiq, Jaden Ivey, Duren, Livers, Killian Hayes, Isaiah Stewart. Now we got 7 as opposed to 2 or 3 guys. So that's the key, Sean, is how many guys are able to step up this year and make a name for themselves, not just locally, but nationally.
Bingo. And then from there, once you find those players, once you get those pieces, and once you get that depth, then you can make the trades, and then you can make, the acquisitions that are going to make the Pistons go higher on this list. Jeff, the thing that, the piece de la resistance, we talk about all the picks that a lot of these teams higher up on this list have. You know what? You know what the Pistons have that I would say only 1 or 2 other teams on this list have? A metric ton of cap space. A metric ton of cap space. And that's going to be the difference of where this can go to even the different levels. So I think, as we're seeing this team, step on the court, I know a lot of us are looking at the development of guys like Cade Cunningham. I know a lot of us are focused on, we even talked about it yesterday, Jaden Ivey, what his rookie year is going to be like. You touched on Jalen Duren, which, believe me, that is a guy we are going to be talking a ton about this here because Lordy, is that a man. But I think it's even more importantly, Jeff, it's going to be guys like Hamidou Diallo. It's going to be guys, it's going to be guys, like we said, like Jalen Duren, but also like you brought up Isaiah Livers. It's going to be about that rotation because if Detroit wants to be competitive, it's going to be from the top down on this roster. It just
Yep.
has to be.
And on top of that, Marvin Bagley, a guy who will miss the first couple weeks, but we know and how we understand how Marvin Bagley came here towards the end of last season. Really, no plays drawn up for him, and he played well. Now, an entire offseason, you've been able to build that team chemistry. I'm excited for Bagley because I really do believe Bagley can be a piece. When you say this young core, I think you're going to be mentioning Marvin Bagley in that. I mean, he just signed that 3-year extension. There's a lot of players to be excited about, at least maybe not known nationally, like I said, but locally, we understand the talent we have and the amount of young guys that have an opportunity this year to make a significant impact. It's just up to them. I mean, a lot of guys are playing essentially for their career, not for their career, but to stay here. I mean, Killian Hayes, there's a lot of guys there's a lot that is kind of.
I think you could say careers, Jeff.
Yes.
I don't think that's outlandish to say at all. I think if Killian doesn't figure it out here, his career's certainly not going to be the same, right? So
right. So it's a big year for a lot of guys.
Yeah, for sure. Not only is it defining for their lives, but it's defining for the Pistons core going forward. And with that, what are your thoughts? What players are you excited to see, take that next step this season? And what do you think of the Ringer's ranking of NBA young cores? Let us know in the comment section down below. It always fuels fun conversations, but in my opinion, gives us a great way to get a pulse check of where the Pistons are at now and what they can do going forward. With that, folks, we want to thank you so much for tuning in, making From Half Court your home for NBA and Pistons content. We will catch you guys next time from Half Court. Be sure you subscribe.
Do it.